let's talk about two-way tables. So most people have seen Venn diagrams before. This is a Venn diagram. This is a Venn diagram. And in this particular instance, what it's showing us is, well, it says, what two questions do you think the students were asked? Well, we're trying to find out how many students take a foreign language, how many students play a sport. And then this whole big box right here is the universe of the students that we are considering. And this little 3 right over here is telling us, well, the 3 students don't play a sport and they don't take any foreign language. Well, how many students are taking a foreign language? Well, I'm going to look inside this circle right here. And I see that the number of students taking a foreign language, well, there's 23 there in the yellow and 14 in the green. So that would be 37. And how many students play a sport? Well, that would be this big circle right here. So that's 10 plus 14. That would be 24. And the intersection of those two, right there, is telling me that 14 students take a foreign language and play a sport. Those 14 students fall into both of these circles. Now, if we were just wanting to know, let's say, one variable, just foreign language, we only want to know one variable here, well, the 23 and the 14, that might be better displayed in like a pie chart. You know, we would say 14 of the foreign language students play a sport, and 23 of the foreign language students don't, so we have a little pie chart. The Venn diagram works when we have 2 variables, 2 categorical variables, 2 variables that don't have, that aren't quantitative. And another way of organizing them is to use what is called a two-way table. So you can kind of see right here. I have my rows, well, either you take a foreign language or you don't take a foreign language. And my columns, you either play a sport or you don't play a sport. And the numbers will line up the same as right there on our Venn diagram. Those who take a foreign language and play a sport, well, that's this intersection right here that we have. And that's why we have that number 14. And those who do not take a foreign language but do play a sport, well, that's this 10 right there. Those who don't play a sport but do take a foreign language, that's my 23. And those who don't play a sport and don't take a foreign language, well, that's my 3 right there, the remaining students. So this is what is called a two-way table. Now, you will notice that the heart of the data is in these 4 boxes right here. But one of the things that we do with a two-way table is that, well, if you kind of look at this area right here, that's around it, those are called the margins, just like you have a margin of a paper. Those are called the margins. And what we do in the margins is we add across and down. So this margin right here, I'm adding 14 plus 23, and I would have the number 37. That is the number of people that take a foreign language. Is that right? Well, sure it is. We can see it back here from our Venn diagram. The people who do not take a foreign language, well, there's those who don't take a foreign language but play a sport, and there's those who don't take a foreign language and don't play a sport. So that's 10 plus 3, that's 13. And now if I want to kind of look at my columns, I'm looking at all the people that play a sport. Well, some of them take a foreign language, some of them don't. 24 to play a sport. How many do not play a sport? Well, 23 people do not play a sport but do take a foreign language, and 3 people play a sport but don't take a foreign language. So that totals out to be 26. These numbers right here are called the marginal frequencies. And they're going to be really helpful in getting some understanding of the data here. And one thing you'll note is that if I add 24 plus 26 going across, I'm going to get 50. And if I add 37 plus 13 going down, I'm going to get 50. If your addition of the margins going down and going across does not give you the same number, then you've got a problem, and you've got to kind of go back and look at your numbers. Now, if you're asked for a marginal frequency, that's going to give you a number. So if I want to know the marginal frequency of people who take a foreign language, it is 37. But if I am asked for a relative frequency, I'm going to have to calculate some kind of a percentage. So, for example, the frequency or the marginal frequency of someone who does not play a sport but does take a foreign language, so does not play a sport but does take a foreign language, is 23. But the relative frequency in terms of the entire population of students would be, well, 23 people do not play a sport divided by the total of 50 students. Well, that would be 0.46 or 46%. The next example here is I want to find the relative frequency of students that take a foreign language and play a sport. So take a foreign language and play a sport. Well, actually, let's look at here. Take a foreign language and play a sport. That's 14. Compared to all the students who take a foreign language. Well, all the students who take a foreign language, well, that's 37. So I'm going to have a ratio of 14 to 37, 0.38, 38%. That's telling me that 38% of the students who take a foreign language also play a sport. I would say a key thing to remember here is that when you see the word relative, it's asking for some kind of a proportion, something relative to something else. And that means you're going to have to give a percentage. Let's do one of the problems together. You know what? I'm going to put that on a separate video.